This here is the Kaiser QB's limited press, a defense-type Bey that belongs to Ken. Man, I actually think Ken is kind of a strange character, especially at first, and he ended up being completely forgotten throughout the Beyblade Burst journey in the later seasons, only coming back almost at the very end of Beyblade Burst, which is a shame. But overall, this Bey has a lot of cool features that I want to analyze with you guys. It's a very remarkable Bey, being one of the best, in fact, among the defense-type Beys released at the time. And we're going to be analyzing that throughout the video. Want to buy original Beyblades from the Metal Fusion Saga at a super affordable price? Just check out the link in the description, and in the pinned comments, it's 100% safe. Well, with our BI disassembled, we have our three parts: the layer, the disc, and the driver. So let's start with the layer and understand its concept. Alright, this here is our Kaiser Kirbyus layer. Man, it's a really cool layer with a lot of awesome details. When we look at it this way, we can understand it a bit better. Here we have the head of Kirbyus. And on this other side, we have the other two heads of Kirbyus, since Kirbyus or Cerberus is the name of the hellhound of Hades. Right? It's a dog that has three heads. And the coolest thing about all this, looking at it today, because back then, when I first saw it, I hadn't noticed, is that this layer, the thicker green part, this thick plastic, is actually chains. It forms a chain, see? As you can see from the visible top part, you can see more clearly that they're interwoven chains, which are the chains that bind Cerberus in hell, his infernal chains, which I think is really cool because it adds a really nice detail to this figure. But anyway, other interesting details are these stickers we have in red, which are already quite worn out, unfortunately, from the previous owner. And they represent the flames of Kerbio, since he is the dog of hell. We also have these details with blue stickers, which would also symbolize a bit of Kerbio's chains. Anyway, when we look at it from the side, we can get a better sense of its design, where basically it's a completely rounded layer with no contact points, meant to literally be a layer for absorbing. So, a defense layer, a tank layer. These contact points, both from the translucent plastic and the more rigid plastic part, are there so that when something hits here, it absorbs the impact, kind of creating a recoil for absorption. In other words, it has 6 distributed absorption contact points on its layer, making it one of the most solid layers released at the time. Later on, better defense bays were released, but for its time, it was obviously one of the best. It has much better absorption, even in my opinion, than Wyverns, for example. Looking from below, we can see these interlaced chains. It has a bit better, but what I want to show you are the burst lock teeth it has, which are quite sturdy, standard for defense bays, alright? Right after that, we have our disc called Limited, or Limit, which is basically the disc that limits our bay. That's why it's called Limit, because it limits the movement of our Katerker god, keeping it centered. Why? Because the weight distribution of this bay is very centralized so that it stays in the middle of the arena. Thanks to this solid metal part it has at the 4 distributed points of our disc, it limits our bay. However, you can see that it has these holes in these cavities here, which are precisely so that this disc isn't too rounded. This way, the opponent's bay can hit here and burst, meaning this would be the disadvantage point that this disc has. But overall, it's a really cool and neat disc for its time, being a defense disc, and it was really awesome for its era, of course. Finally, we have the driver, known as Press, which I think is really cool because of its tough, rugged look. It's pretty brutal, man. With these spikes it has distributed around it, it doesn't serve any real purpose except for style, okay? Oh, but doesn't this one have any collision, man? Almost none, almost none. Very few bays will hit here, but if they do, they'll make contact with these little spikes, these tiny thorns it has here, as you can see, spread around. But it really gives this driver a tough, rugged look. Its tip is very rounded, as you can see. It has a rounded part here, which gives it 2 movement patterns. When it touches with the rounded part, which is a standard defense tip style, it will have that defensive base concept, centered and all that. And this part connects the base to the tip. There are 4 flat parts, and depending on how I make contact, this can reduce the base stamina. So this driver has stamina issues. It won't spin for very long. However, it will be quite solid and heavy simply because it has more plastic in its body, which adds more weight and gives this tip a greater center of gravity, which is pretty cool. But anyway, shall we assemble our Kaiser Kirbyus now? You guys are already used to assembling it. We just take our layer, turn it upside down, grab the disc, and fit it into these little holes here. Did it click? Now we're going to take our driver, put it here, and give it a little twist until it sinks in. When it drops down, you press and turn it clockwise, okay? All done. And here we have the Kaiser Kerberos limited press. Definitely the kind of defense type that belongs to our buddy Ken, who at first I thought was weird, but his Bey is really cool. I like him. I like the sort of brutal concept he has because of these spikes distributed all around and also these walls, right? This also ends up helping to protect, in a way, from direct contact with the tip. If the Bey is tilted too much and hits it, for example. But overall, it's pretty interesting because it protects well with its layer, one of the most efficient defense layers of its time, of course, but it does have its disadvantages. Which are these gaps around its disc which end up getting hit here and forcing it to come apart, which is a shame. But if it didn't have that, it would be way too overpowered since it's so rounded and well protected on its upper part, right? So the tip I give you is when you launch it flat, because if you launch it at an angle, it will mess with its stamina due to these protective walls it has. And it will also make it a bit exposed and burst more easily, okay? But overall, it's a really cool Bey that I want to do some battle tests with you guys. But before that, I want to ask you to leave your like down below and subscribe, which really helps the channel, and most importantly, become a member. If you become a member, you can enter the giveaways and also help keep these videos going. All right? So, enough talk. Let's get to the battle tests. So, enough with the explanations. Let's do the battle tests with our Kaiser Kirbyus. To start the battle tests with our great Kirbyus here, the Hell Defense Bey. I want to test it against Anubis, which is also a defense beat. Let's see how these two perform in action. Let's go. All right, I'll launch Anubis first. Launch it nice and straight. And Kirbyus as well. Let's go. In terms of stamina, Kirbyus has less endurance than Anubis. But wow. It wasn't even close. Anubis literally crushed the Hellhound Kirbyus. Damn, look at this. Which side did it hit on the finish here, huh? Solid, but still powerful. Well, I want to do a battle test here with Sizer against our Kirbyus or Death Sizer, depending on how you say it. But anyway, let's see how an attack type does against a defense type. So, let's go. Alright, I'll start by launching our Kirbyus here. First, nice and straight. And now, launch Doom Sizer. Let's go. Well, it already went straight for Kirbyus, but ended up losing control. However, it's going to find the center to hit Kirbyus. Meanwhile, Kirbyus is solid, passive there in the middle, typical of a defense-type Beyblade. And now it's about to start. The attacks are about to begin. Kirbyus' stamina is quite low compared to other defense-type Beyblades, and it showed its weakness here. As I told you before, its stamina is very low, really very low. It's even lower than Cider's, because Cider here simply relied on stamina, securing the win, and thus defeating our Kirbyus. Well, now I want to do a test here between Shukuranai and Ken, where we'll see how a balanced type Beyblade does against Kaiser, to see what it's like when these two battle. Let's go! Alright, I'm going to launch our Kaiser here, and now launch the Shukuranai into the stadium. Wow, what is that? What is that? What a move.
Oh, it's really powerful, isn't it?
It doesn't seem aggressive, but it's way too destructive. The Storm Spriggan layer, man. That's crazy. Just one hit. It hit, then it was like, there you go. Done, it burst Kaiser Kirbyus. Alright, shall we see how our Ragnarok does against Kirbyus? Shall we? Okay, let's launch Ragnarok for stamina, and now Kirbyus. Alright? In terms of stamina, the logic obviously favors our Ragnarok, right? But you never know. You never know. So far, both bays are pretty contained, but in terms of stamina, Ragnarok wins, huh? Kirbyus is at a big disadvantage here, a really big one. Look at that. It's already wobbling, losing a lot of stamina, and obviously the boss took it, right? Very solid in stamina. To wrap up this video, I want to do a legendary battle between Valkyrie and Kirbyus. Let's go. Alright, here we go. Launching Kirbyus, straight, and now launching Valkyrie. He landed a hit there. He didn't land his finishing attack. If he had, maybe it would have made a difference. But hold on, there's still game left. It didn't work. Man, it was a close call. It just grazed by, you know that breeze that just brushes past and then you get a low punch? I know, it doesn't really make sense, but anyway, a low punch. Right here. Man, it brushed right past his ear, just passing by. If he hadn't taken a little step to the side, Kirbyus would have been done for sure, man. But it's a win for Kirbyus, man. At least one. He lost almost all of them. Well, guys, this was Kirbyus' battle set, and that's how it is, right? Even though its layer is one of the best for defense, its exposure, because of the disc, makes it burst really easily. And we saw that in action here, right? It bursts easily against other bays. Anyway, it was really fun to do this battle set. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave your like and subscribe. See you next time with another video, and let it rip.